Michael's hands trembled as he clutched the folded paper in front of him. His face was pale, his jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might shatter. I stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of rage and devastation that I had never seen before. "This test," he said, his voice breaking, "this test says the baby is not mine." The words sliced through the air like a blade. My knees buckled, and I gripped the edge of the counter to keep myself from collapsing. The room spun. The baby monitor on the table let out a soft hum, a cruel reminder of the tiny life sleeping in the next room, innocent, yet carrying the truth that had just destroyed us. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat burned, my lips trembled, and shame wrapped around me like chains. Michael shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "How could you, Rachel? How could you do this to us?" Before I continue, I want to pause for a moment. To my loyal subscribers, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here with me. Your support keeps this channel alive. And to all new and returning viewers who have not subscribed yet, I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button. It is your energy and encouragement that fuels these raw and emotional stories. Do not forget to share your thoughts in the comments right now about this hook you just heard. I read them all, and they inspire me to keep bringing you more. My name is Rachel, and I am 33 years old. On the surface, my life looked picture perfect. I was married to Michael, a 35-year-old man who was the definition of stability. He worked as a financial advisor in our small Ohio town. He was dependable, loyal, and he loved me more than I ever deserved. Together, we built a quiet suburban life with a cozy home, barbecues in the backyard, and weekends spent visiting his parents. But behind the closed doors of that perfect life, I carried a secret that was eating me alive. The father of my baby was not my husband. It all started a year before the baby was born. Michael was working long hours at his firm, often leaving early in the morning and returning late at night. I would sit at home, scrolling endlessly on my phone, feeling invisible in my own marriage. I told myself it was normal, that all marriages had dry seasons, but loneliness has a way of blinding you to reason. That was when I met Ethan. Ethan was 30, tall, broad-shouldered, with a rugged confidence that drew people in effortlessly. He worked at the gym I had started going to after feeling restless at home. At first, he was just the trainer who helped me with weights and corrected my form. But his jokes, his attention, and the way he looked at me with a hunger I had not felt in years awakened something reckless inside me. It began with lingering conversations after workouts, his hand brushing against mine a second too long, his smile making my stomach flutter in ways I thought were long dead. Then one evening, when the gym was almost empty, he leaned closer and whispered, "You deserve more than being someone's afterthought." I knew it was wrong, but the fire inside me drowned out the guilt. Our affair started quickly, recklessly. Ethan's apartment became our secret world, a place where passion replaced the cold silence of my marriage bed. I told myself it was temporary, that I would stop before it went too far. But every time I tried to walk away, I found myself running back to him. Then came the moment that changed everything. The pregnancy test in my bathroom flashed positive. I stared at the 2 pink lines, my hands shaking, tears streaming down my face. I wanted to believe it was Michael's. I prayed it was. But deep down, I knew the timing was wrong. The weeks I had been with Ethan lined up too perfectly. I pressed the test to my chest and whispered, "What have I done?" When I told Michael I was pregnant, his face lit up with a joy that broke me. He lifted me into his arms, spun me around the kitchen, and whispered, "This is the best day of my life." I smiled through tears, pretending my heart was not tearing itself apart. I let him believe the child was his, because the thought of shattering his happiness was unbearable. Throughout my pregnancy, Michael was the perfect husband. He attended every doctor's appointment, painted the nursery, and read books about fatherhood late into the night. He would rest his hand on my growing belly and talk to the baby as if they could already hear his voice. And every time he did, guilt crushed me. Ethan, on the other hand, was different. When I told him about the pregnancy, he leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "Are you sure it is mine?" he asked. My heart sank. His tone was cold, detached, nothing like the passion he showed me in bed. I nodded silently, and he shrugged. "Then you have to decide what you want, Rachel. Him or me. Because this will not stay hidden forever." I left his apartment that night with a knot in my stomach. I realized then that Ethan was not the man I thought he was. He wanted the thrill, the chase, the forbidden, but not the responsibility. The baby was born on a rainy spring morning. Michael held her first, tears streaming down his cheeks, whispering, "She is perfect." And she was. She was beautiful, with tiny fingers and wide eyes. But as she grew, small details began to emerge that made my stomach twist: her dark hair, her sharper features, traits that did not belong to Michael's family. He did not notice at first. But I did. Every time I looked at her, I saw Ethan's face staring back at me. I prayed Michael would never see it. But deep down, I knew the day would come when the truth could no longer hide. For the first few months after the baby was born, life moved forward as though everything was normal. Michael was so wrapped up in fatherhood that he did not notice the storm that was brewing beneath the surface. He would come home from work, scoop our daughter into his arms, and talk to her in a voice filled with devotion. The way he looked at her made my heart ache. But with every passing week, I could not ignore the resemblance. Her deep brown eyes, her dark hair, the shape of her jawline, none of it matched Michael. It was Ethan's reflection staring back at me through the innocence of a child. And slowly, Michael began to notice too. It started with small comments. One afternoon, while changing her diaper, Michael chuckled softly and said, "She looks nothing like me. She is all you." His tone was light, but his eyes lingered a little too long on her features. Another time, at a family gathering, his mother cooed over the baby and said, "I cannot figure out who she takes after. Maybe some distant relative?" Michael laughed, but later that night, I caught him staring at her while she slept, his brow furrowed in thought. The weight of suspicion began to creep into our marriage. He grew quieter, his conversations shorter. He stopped making jokes at dinner, stopped reaching for my hand when we walked through the park. I tried to overcompensate, cooking his favorite meals, surprising him with small gestures, but his distance grew each day. I knew what he was thinking. He would never say it aloud, but his silence screamed louder than words. Meanwhile, Ethan had not disappeared. He texted me occasionally, usually at night. His messages were short, taunting. "Does he know yet? She looks like me, does she not? You cannot hide this forever." I would delete the texts immediately, terrified Michael would find them. But the damage was already done. Ethan was not interested in fatherhood, he was interested in watching me unravel. One evening, the tension finally cracked. Michael came home late from work. He dropped his briefcase by the door and walked straight past me without a word. Our daughter was asleep in her crib, the soft glow of the baby monitor lighting the corner of the room. I followed him into the kitchen, where he was staring blankly at a glass of water. "Michael, talk to me," I whispered. He turned slowly, his eyes hollow. "Rachel, do you think she looks like me?" My heart stopped. The question I had feared for months was now out in the open. I forced a smile and nodded. "Of course she does. She has your nose." But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. He knew it too. The next days were filled with unspoken tension. He watched me more closely, his phone always in his hand, his eyes darting toward the baby as if searching for evidence. I found myself unable to breathe under the weight of his suspicion. One night, when he thought I was asleep, I heard him crying in the bathroom. The sound of his muffled sobs tore me apart. He was already breaking, and I knew the truth would destroy him completely. Ethan was the shadow behind it all. 2 weeks later, I saw him at the grocery store. I froze when I noticed him standing near the produce aisle, his arms crossed, his smirk unmistakable. He walked over casually, his voice low so no one could hear. She looks just like me, he said, leaning close. I wonder how long until your husband figures it out. I pulled back, my chest tightening. Leave me alone, Ethan. This is not your life. You made it clear you do not care about her. He shrugged. Maybe. But secrets like this never stay buried. And when it all comes out, do not forget who you really wanted. His words haunted me long after he walked away. Michael's suspicion turned into action soon after. One evening, I noticed him on his laptop, his face tense. When I asked what he was doing, he shut it quickly and said work. But I knew better. The next morning, while folding laundry, I found a crumpled receipt in his pocket, an order for a DNA test kit. My chest constricted as I clutched the paper in my hand. My world was collapsing, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. From that day forward, I lived in silent torment. Every moment felt like a countdown to the inevitable. Every time Michael held the baby, I wondered if it would be the last time he looked at her with love. When the kit arrived in the mail, I saw him slip it into his briefcase. He did not say a word, but his silence was deafening. I wanted to confess, to fall to my knees and beg for forgiveness, but the words stuck in my throat. I was too much of a coward. I chose silence, knowing it was only delaying the storm. One night, after putting the baby to sleep, Michael sat across from me at the dining table. The air was heavy, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall. He looked at me with tired, empty eyes. Rachel, he said quietly, if there is something I need to know, now is the time. My heart pounded. This was my chance. My opportunity to tell him before the paper did. But my lips trembled, and fear strangled the truth. I shook my head and whispered, there is nothing, Michael. The disappointment in his eyes nearly killed me. He knew I was lying. The DNA test was the nail in the coffin. Days later, I noticed him pacing the living room, an envelope in his hands. His knuckles were white as he gripped it, his face pale. He had not opened it yet, but the weight of what was inside hung in the room like a curse. He looked at me once, his eyes bloodshot, and then walked upstairs without a word. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the explosion that I knew was coming. I will never forget the night the envelope was opened. Michael had been carrying it around for 2 days, like a bomb in his pocket. I knew what it was, I knew what it contained, and yet I clung to silence as though my silence could somehow protect me. But secrets have a way of clawing to the surface, and this one was ready to detonate. It was a rainy Thursday evening. The baby had finally fallen asleep, her tiny chest rising and falling in peaceful innocence, while I sat on the couch pretending to scroll through my phone. Michael came into the living room, his shirt sleeves rolled up, the envelope in his hand. His face was pale, his jaw tight, his eyes red from sleepless nights. He did not sit down. He stood in front of me, the paper trembling slightly between his fingers. I opened it, he said. His voice was flat, but beneath it I could hear the crack of something breaking. I froze, my body rigid. I wanted to speak, to explain, to beg, but the truth was already written in that letter. There was nothing left for me to say. It says she is not mine, he whispered, his voice trembling. Not mine, Rachel. Tears blurred my vision. I reached for him, but he stepped back as if my touch burned him. What followed was not yelling at first. It was silence, thick, suffocating silence. He stared at me, waiting for me to speak, but what words could I possibly say? How do you confess that the man you promised forever to had been living a lie under his own roof? Finally, his silence broke. Who is he? Michael demanded. His voice was sharp now, filled with a rage I had never seen in him before. Who is the father? My lips trembled as I whispered the name I had kept hidden for so long. Ethan. Michael's eyes widened with fury. He paced the room, his hands pulling at his hair, his chest heaving with heavy breaths. Ethan? The same Ethan I saw you talking to that night at the company dinner? The man you swore was just a colleague? I could not answer. My silence was confirmation enough. What happened next was a storm I had brought upon myself. Michael shouted, cursed, slammed his fists against the wall. His rage shook the house, but beneath it all was heartbreak. His tears fell as fast as his words. I have been loving a child that is not mine. I have been protecting a lie. Do you know what you have done to me, Rachel? I sobbed, collapsing onto the couch, covering my face with trembling hands. I am sorry, Michael. I never wanted this to happen. I did not know how to stop it once it started. My apology meant nothing. The damage was permanent. He left that night. I heard the front door slam, the sound echoing like a gunshot. His car pulled out of the driveway, the headlights disappearing into the rain. I sat alone in the living room, my heart racing, my hands shaking, the weight of my choices crushing me. Upstairs, the baby slept, unaware of the chaos her existence had unleashed. For 3 days, Michael did not return. When he finally came back, he did not bring warmth with him. He came to pack his things. His face was cold, his eyes empty. He did not look at me, did not speak beyond what was necessary. This house is yours, he said flatly as he zipped up a suitcase. I want nothing from you. But I will never raise another man's child. I am done. His words cut deeper than any blade could. The separation was not loud. It was quiet, final, like a door closing on the rest of my life. He filed for divorce within weeks. Papers arrived in the mail, and I signed them with trembling hands. There were no long conversations, no drawn-out battles. He was gone, and I was left behind with nothing but regret. Ethan? He vanished too. He had no interest in stepping into the role of father. He ignored my calls, blocked my number, and left me to carry the burden alone. The man I had risked everything for had never wanted me, only the thrill of what he could take. The irony was cruel. Michael, the man I had betrayed, was the only one who had truly loved me. He had been loyal, faithful, gentle, and committed. And I had destroyed him for a fleeting passion with a man who discarded me like trash the moment consequences arrived. Nights became unbearable. I would sit in the nursery rocking my daughter to sleep, tears dripping onto her blanket. She was innocent, yet she carried the face of my betrayal. Every time I looked at her, I saw Ethan. And every time I saw Ethan, I remembered Michael's broken eyes as he said goodbye. Life after Michael was emptier than I ever imagined. Friends pulled away. Some judged me, some pitied me, but none of them stayed close. Even family looked at me differently. I was no longer Rachel, the wife and mother. I was Rachel, the woman who cheated, the woman whose husband left because the child she carried was not his. The weight of shame was unbearable. One night, months after he left, I saw Michael again. It was by accident. I had taken the baby to the park, and there he was, walking with his sister. Our eyes met across the field. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the man who once loved me, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. He turned away without a word, without a glance at the child who had destroyed his world. I wanted to run to him, to beg for one more chance, but deep down, I knew forgiveness would never come. Some wounds never heal. Now, I live each day with the echo of my choices. My daughter is growing, her smile lighting up the darkest corners of my broken heart. But every time she laughs, I wonder what life would have been if I had been faithful, if I had chosen Michael instead of chasing a shadow. I lost my marriage, my respect, my reputation, and the only man who ever truly loved me. And there is no redemption, no second chance, only the cold truth that my betrayal cost me everything. Michael found out the baby was not his. And from that day forward, nothing was ever the same.